And I want to begin to talk about some things that I believe all of us as believers, black, white, Jew, Gentile, those who are Republicans, those who are Democrats, those who are independent, those who are rich, those who are poor, those who are in whatever condition, that there are some things that all of us need to do in this hour to help bring some counsel in this chaos. Let's begin by looking at some principles that Paul begins to write in verse 25. First, Paul talks about the fact that every single one of us is in a different circumstance. And that's the first point I want to bring out. That he says in verse 25, there's some of us that are married. And if you're married, he says, don't seek to be unmarried. If you're a virgin, if you never married, then don't seek to be married. He says in verse 18, a little bit further back, if you're circumcised, don't try to become uncircumcised. That if you are a servant, verse 21, don't necessarily try to get out of being a servant. Now, he does say that in his conclusions, if you have a chance to change what you are in order to be more effective, then do that. Look at verses 21 and 22. He says, if you're called being a servant, and if you don't like being a servant, if you have a chance to be free, take it. He says also in verse 22, if you're called of the Lord, again, being a servant, you are the Lord's freeman. If you're called being free, then you are the Lord's servant. In other words, whatever condition you find yourself in, the physical part of it is not as important as the fact that you are called to do what God has called you to do, whatever place you find yourself in. Now, some of the brothers that called me, and some of the other brothers that I've heard about, they're in situations that they did not choose. You did not choose your ethnicity. You did not choose your sex. You did not choose in necessarily some of the families that you were born into. You did not choose any of that. If you were adopted, then yeah, maybe you had some choice. But for most of us, we had no choice of our ethnicity. We had no choice of our sex. We had no choice of who we were born to. Those are unchangeable things that God ordained. But he says, if there are some things that you can change that would make you more effective in sharing the gospel, then you change those.